You know, it's funny. I've seen a lot of movies recently where the premise of the movie doesn't actually come into play a whole lot in the movie. In Bottoms, it's about how these girls form a self-defense class. And I think the self-defense class was in the movie for roughly 10 of the 75 or 80 minutes that it was. This one kind of does the same thing. For a movie about dancers, I thought there would be a little bit more dancing. Happy Halloween, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today our movie in the middle is Suspiria. Suspiria follows aspiring dancer Susie Banyan as she attends a prestigious German ballet school and discovers some very strange and dangerous goings-on within its walls. It stars Jessica Harper, Eva Axen, Alida Valli, and Joan, Bennett. So this is not the one that I expected to do this year, but I did watch it and I had some things change around, so I'm actually pretty excited to do this one because I just happened to watch it on the fly. I've been meaning to watch this one, and of course there is a 2018 remake starring Dakota Johnson, and I've heard that that one as well is very, very good. Both of them are pretty much similar only in name and basic premise, but both of them are very, very good. So that's one that I want to get to at some point as well. Now, this is actually a foreign movie. I didn't know that going into it, or at least I think I might have heard it, but I wasn't sure. It is an Italian movie. It was made mostly in Italy and in some other spots. It is actually not all completely dubbed in English because the main actress is American. So they only had to dub half of the lines, pretty much everything that wasn't hers. So it was weird because sometimes I didn't really notice anything because they didn't have to dub anything. And then sometimes I was like, whoa, that didn't look good at all. But then I had to remember that this is just dubbed over in English. And for the most part, it actually was pretty good. So most of the highs for this movie are going to be very technical things about the movie, specifically the production design and cinematography. This is a weird looking, but very cool looking movie. I absolutely love the architecture and production design in this movie. It just gives a very weird atmosphere because the design of the buildings, I don't know, there's just something about it that's really odd and unique and different. And obviously this takes place in a different country, so it might just be that their buildings are really unique, but there's something about this particular one, which I'll get to a little bit more in a minute, that just, I don't know, it's unsettling, but really cool. And along with that, the color design in the architecture, in the production design, but also just overall is just amazing. Mostly, you might notice that most of the movie is just red. Everything is red, but it pops so much. I mean, colors in older movies just pop so much more, but in this one, the red is just everywhere. It's vibrant. It's just showing that this is a weird, dangerous place, and you're probably gonna die here. But the building and really all of the design in this movie just gives this very odd, unsettling atmosphere. And I was trying to figure out why, for so long after watching this movie, it really got to me. And I think I finally know what it is. It's that in other horror movies, even though it's always a different house, cabin, hotel, whatever it might be, it's the same type of thing every time. It at least feels familiar. Yeah, it's a different house. Yeah, it's a different farm, but it feels kind of familiar. This building just does not feel familiar at all. It feels very unique and creepy. And I think that's what it is, because they strike this line so well in how this building, the school, looks, in that on one side, it is so weird and unsettling because there's just parts of like rooms that feel like they shouldn't be there or they shouldn't be designed the way that they are. There's things in the rooms that feel like I don't even know why that's there. There's just something about it that just feels a little bit off, and just off enough. But on the other side, it doesn't feel like they did it so much on purpose to just make it weird or scary. It just is how it is. And like I said, realistically, it's probably just another case of American boy watches a foreign film and sees a lot of foreign architecture and things like that and doesn't really understand it, and that's why it makes it scary. But it works. And aside from the look of the movie, the other thing that gives it this atmosphere is the music. I did a video a couple years ago about how I thought that the Halloween theme and Tubular Bells from The Exorcist had a lot in common, and they felt kind of similar. If I had seen this movie before I made that video, I wouldn't have even considered Halloween. I would have said that this theme and Tubular Bells feel so much alike, because they both just have that repetitiveness. The bell is this tingling sound that just makes it chilling. It repeats over and over and over, this just set of notes, but I was okay with it because it just gives this, again, atmosphere. It's in the background, just giving you a little bit of a sense of unease. And finally, of course, the one of the biggest things about this movie that is really, really well done is the kills. I actually kind of went over something like this in Psycho last year when I did that video, but there's, like Psycho, 3 main instances where something happens to somebody that's like a really big deal. Mostly they maybe die, but maybe not, you don't know. And each of them just get progressively more shocking. The first one feels like I have to suspend my disbelief just a little bit, but it's still pretty shocking, and the visuals in that one are insane. Then the second one happens, and it's shocking because it's not necessarily a twist, but it feels like there's a couple different options of where this scene could go. And it goes in the one that I didn't think of. It goes in the one direction that I didn't even consider. And then the last one, for me, was definitely the most unsettling because, again, it involves the school and rooms inside the school where it just feels like this stuff just shouldn't be here. Why is that here? My only middle for the movie, it's kind of a stupid one, but because of how the audio is in old movies, a lot of times whispering is hard to hear because it's not like the whispering is clearer. It's just they've turned the volume up, the gain up on the whispering, so it's louder but not easier to hear. There is so much whispering in this movie because it's a lot of characters like giving ideas of what might be going on without anybody else hearing. It's a lot of that, and so a lot of this movie, I couldn't really understand what they were saying. Now, the reason it's a middle is because I don't know if it's the movie's fault or the platform that I was watching on, which was Zumo, I think, that I couldn't get subtitles because there was an option for it and I hit it and then it never came up. So I was just having to go off of what I could hear, which in parts, even though, and I'll get to this in a second, the story's not super complicated, so it wasn't a huge deal, it was still kind of annoying. My only low for the movie, and it's not even like a huge deal, is the story. The story is very simple and kind of regular, but it serves its purpose. And that's okay, because I think with everything else going on that was so odd and weird, it may have been too much to make the story too complicated. It kind of grounds it just a little bit. The thing is, I just wish they dove into it a little bit more. You know, don't make it super complicated. I like this idea that it's just go to a school, weird things are happening, try to find out what's going on, confront it towards the end. And that's the story. You know, that's most horror stories. I just felt like there was a lot of weird stuff going on, and that's really cool. I just wanted to see a bit more, and specifically with the characters as well, because there's a lot of people who attend this school, and we don't really get to know most of them. And it sucks because they seem very interesting or even odd. There's like moments where like the students are like going at each other and like doing these weird hissing sounds and stuff, and it's like, who are you? Now, I don't feel like the movie was unsatisfying by any means, and nothing was like unresolved. I just wanted even more. And there's really only one moment where we get like a lot of explanation. There's like a kind of info dump scene, and I wasn't super like upset about that or anything, but I just wanted more of this lore. But I will say, to the movie's credit, it is hard anymore to make a movie like this with supernatural elements to it that does genuinely feel scary and creepy and terrifying and suspenseful, and not bland or overdone, or we've seen this before. And this movie does that very well, especially towards the end when she starts to confront things that are happening. I was intrigued the whole time. I was in it. I was like, this could actually be genuinely really terrifying. And there were some pretty terrifying moments at the end. It didn't like throw me completely off or anything, but it was very interesting. And I do think that it's even more impressive considering it was made in the 70s, although I do think that helps. I do think it helps a horror movie to have been made in the 70s, because 70s movies, no matter what they are, just feel a little bit unsettling anyway, just by the nature of how they're filmed. You know, they're always grainy, they got these long zooms, very stagnant shots that they'll hold on for a long time, they're very quiet. There was just something about him that just felt weird and sometimes a little bit ugly. But again, that works towards it. So in these horror movies, it always makes it just feel that much creepier, and it really works towards this one. So overall, I am really glad that I watched Suspiria. It's been on my list for a long time. Finally glad I got to watch it, even though it feels like a generic story, and that's pretty much the consensus that most people say. I think that that's fine, because the point of this one isn't to have a wild story. It's to have a wild telling of it, and a wild visual, and almost a little bit psychedelic in telling the story. So again, I like that it's almost a little bit too simple, because it's more about the experience, the atmosphere, and the look, and the visuals, and the music watching it. It stuck with me, and I really feel like I want to watch this movie again. And I am really excited to see what the 2018 one is like, because again, I've heard it's very different. Really only pulls one or two things from the original, but that they're both really good. And I loved this one, so I want to see what the other one does. I'm going to give Suspiria 1977 a 3.5 out of 4. Well, guys, let me know what you thought of Suspiria, and let me know if you've seen the other one, the 2018 version, and what you think in terms of which one's better, or are they both pretty good? And let me know what you guys ended up doing for Halloween, who you ended up going as, how much candy you ate, did you scare anybody, did anybody run into your house because they thought you had a dog, and it wasn't a dog, it was just a really tiny animatronic thing, and then it got really weird, and then they had to pull you out. That didn't happen to me. I'm just not going to say who it was. I hope you guys have an incredible, safe, and happy Halloween. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.